Hello, everybody. I'm Jamie Kale Miller of Pandora Astrology, and with me today is Julia Mijas
Hi, I'm Julia Mijas, and I am joining in from San Francisco, California.
and also Natha Perkins Campanella.
Hi, you guys. It's Natha, and I'm in Boulder, Colorado.
Today, we're going to look at all the retrogrades that are happening in April of 2019. It's a month in which there's not a lot of planetary activity in terms of aspects between planets, but three of the biggies are going retrograde, and this is going to really give us that retrograde feeling. One of them is Pluto, one of them is Saturn, one of them is Jupiter. Now, Pluto and Saturn are happening later in the month, so we're going to focus on Jupiter today and say a few things about what does it mean when planets go retrograde? How does that feel? Let's take a look at the page on pandoraastrology.com about the stations of Jupiter. Now, there's a lot of words here, but I want to go straight to the diagram because this shows you what happens when planets go retrograde. Most of the time, Jupiter is going forward, like this. Jupiter has begun the year in January in the sign of Sagittarius, and then on April 10th, coming very soon now, it turns retrograde or backwards. Now, this is only a visual illusion, but it's a measurable phenomenon and therefore meaningful to astrologers. And stuff is associated with it. Stuff happens. So when Jupiter turns retrograde, it travels backward in the sky in apparent motion all the way till August 11th of 2019. When it turns forward again, we call that direct, and then it heads on through the end of Sagittarius and off into the next year and the next sign, which will be Capricorn. But what does it mean when Jupiter is retrograde? Ladies, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I'll go, Julia. I see you and I kind of looking at each other. I always think when outer planets go retrograde that it triggers big questions for us in our lives for a number of months while the planet is retrograde. And Jupiter, being a planet of higher education and of switching perspectives and really exploring things that are different from what we know and from what we have learned thus far, I look at Jupiter going retrograde, especially in the sign that it rules of Sagittarius, as a time when we really get to look at the way that we're holding perspective in our life. Is that perspective still serving us? Are there places where we could really shift and change and broaden our perspective? And so I think this is going to be a really exciting retrograde for all of us if we're into things like, educating ourselves and learning new things and having fun and adventuring. What about you, Julia?
Yeah, I think that's really well said. Jupiter being the planet of beliefs, being the planet of religion, of philosophy, of perspective. I've often heard retrograde times as being more internalized times as well. So it could be that we're reviewing that these kind of larger perspectives when we usually go out into the world and think about things from a greater vantage point might become a lot more personalized, might become a lot more internalized right now. And because, I'm curious to hear your guys' your perspectives on this, but because Jupiter is kind of considered a benefic planet, maybe the retrograde cycles are not as jarring as like when Mercury goes retrograde or the other more challenging outer planets go retrograde. But what do you guys think about that?
I think there's something to that. I think that Jupiter transits always are a journey of expansion, and the retrograde portion of a Jupiter transit can be like an inward journey of expansion, a looking inward to expand the mind and the heart and the soul even. Natha, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that is true. And I think that Jupiter, especially in the sign of Sagittarius, we will be internal, but we'll be having a little bit more fun and having access to the things, that, inspiration and courage and inquisitiveness. And so I think that this will be a retrograde that perhaps we won't have to do the kind of work that we'll have to do with Pluto and Saturn.
Right.
So there will be, you know, it'll still be interesting. Things will be interesting, but probably, yeah, Julia, like you said, maybe a little bit more fun.
Another thing to keep in mind is that Jupiter's span this year has it traveling up as far as 24 degrees of Sagittarius and back as far as 14 degrees of Sagittarius. Jupiter usually covers a 10-degree span when it retrogrades every year. And that means a whole pile of luck, opportunity, along with that growth and expansion for the mutable signs, particularly Sagittarians. If you are a Sagittarian born somewhere between the 4th of December and the 14th, then most likely Jupiter is conjuncting your sun in multiple hits this year, and you're probably feeling rather full of yourself. And the same could be said for Pisceans born in those dates in March, Geminis born in those dates in June, and even humble Virgos born in those dates in September. So enjoy yourselves, mutable signs. Let's take a look at this month's lunation. There's a new moon coming on April 5th, which features, let me make a circle here, which features the sun and the moon conjunct in Aries. Now, the sun and the moon are always going to be conjunct for a new moon because that's what a new moon is. This one's going to have a particular feel because it's in Aries, and it's also got a beautiful trine to Ceres over here in Sagittarius, the sign that Ceres loves to be in. And it's also got a square to Saturn. That'll probably dampen the mood a little bit. What do you ladies think?
Yeah, when I was looking at the chart for this moon, I thought, okay, this is great. We've got this Aries energy that's going to carry us out of some of the holdover of the Pisces watery energy that we've been doing this past month, and especially since Mercury was in retrograde in Pisces. And so this Aries energy is going to give us action, and it's going to really, you know, instigate some good stuff, especially when it comes to self-care, to taking care of ourselves in better ways. And then, of course, you bring in Saturn, and Saturn may feel a little bit restrictive, but, you know, perhaps the Saturn connection will function as some good boundaries for us to really corral the energy and to really get you know, actually move into action when we want to take care of ourselves, as opposed to thinking about it and then distracting ourselves from it, which happens with the fire signs.
Yeah, and Aries can get a little bit of crazy, you know, so maybe a bit of restriction from Saturn would be a good thing. Yeah, Julia, what do you think?
Yep. Well, new moons, I've heard them described before as sort of germinating times, where it's time to sort of initiate, to start something new. And because we have that trine from Ceres, which has to deal with food, body, and money, those could be areas of life around this new moon where we're trying to get something, maybe a new project, a new routine, something kind of started there. And yeah, the square from Saturn is a bit of a, you know, it probably presents a bit of an obstacle or a little bit of a blockage to getting that sort of fresh start, because Saturn is strong in his own sign of Capricorn, and that's the brick wall of reality. That's kind of your boss, that's your organization, that's just kind of, you know, society at large. So there may be some kind of obstacles in that sort of fresh new start you want to get to, but you can also, you know, squares and anything from Saturn can also be times of manifestation, but yeah, with a few roadblocks along the way.
Love it. Well, thank you, ladies. I hope everybody enjoyed this video today from Pandora Astrology, and we'll see you later in the month for another one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.